This episode of the Kingston Live podcast is brought to you by Grand Onstage. Get the most out of the Kingston Grand Theatre experience with access to pre-sale tickets, the best prices, and the best seats. Tickets for individual performances and subscriptions for the Grand Onstage season are on sale now at kingstongran.ca.
Assuming this isn't the first time you've listened to this podcast, you probably know that Kingston Live refers to live music. But that's far from the only thing happening on our local stages. Stand-up comedy and live music have many of the same properties, but they're treated very differently. They both require similar skills in performance and crowd work, and neither can be mastered without significant time on the stage in front of crowds of strangers. Despite the similarities, they often use different venues and operate in different circles. The lines are rigid, but occasionally an artist comes around that breaks down those barriers and creates something unique through musical comedy, like Tenacious D, Bo Burnham, or Flight of the Conchords. For over a decade, Logan Brown has kept a foot in both comedy and music. You can catch him on stage in Kingston and beyond with his acoustic guitar, including hosting open mic nights at the Tiernanog. You might catch him covering some 80s classics, or if you catch a comedy set, you'll hear his original cuts like Secret Burger and Middle-Aged Love from his comedy album Black Man, White Privilege.
I still want to make sweet love to you, beautiful. It's just now I've got to warm up more than usual. Ooh, I want to make a middle-aged love to you. You're gonna need an Advil when we are through. Ooh, just not the extra strength that hurts my tummy. Ow! My knee.
Offstage, Logan is an advocate for the local stand-up scene and works to create spaces in the city where new musicians and comedians alike can work new material and develop their craft. We're sitting down with Logan to talk local stand-up, developing a comedy scene, bombing on stage, and late-night runs for hamburgers. Hello, this is Kingston Live. I am Johnny San.
I'm Riley Jabor.
And Logan Brown is with us.
What's going on? You tripped me out, dude. You didn't push any buttons or anything. It's just been recording the whole time. That's great. Probably should have said all those slurs off the top. You can edit those out? All right, cool. Sweet.
They'll be in the promo package. Don't you worry. Yeah.
Oh, it's nice to be back in Kingston, man. It's good.
Well, it's nice to have you back on the podcast. We had you once before, but it was in the thick of COVID.
That's right. Yeah, dude. Like, I had all these like out there wild things to say about like being an entertainer and being an artist and being true to yourself, and then like a week later I quit music. I was like, be true to yourself, and I'm like, yeah, I don't like doing this, and then I went and then left. Yeah.
But we've come full circle though.
Right, yeah.
Yes. No, I'm really curious to hear your thoughts about, because both comedy and music go back a long ways for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, like what came first? Tell us the story.
Yeah, well, my love for comedy was first. Comedy's always been my favorite thing, and even like as a musician, like I would try to be silly. Like there would be a real disconnect with what I'd post on social media and like how I was at shows, because I'm always trying to be silly, or like sometimes I'd put on the professional hat and be like, if you want to have a good time, come on down. I'll be playing all your favorites at McThirsty's Pint and Grub. There's actually an actual McThirsty's. That's my usual go-to pub that I make fun of, but there's a real one in Peterborough, so I have to come up with a better name. Anyways, I digress.
Okay.
But yeah, I would be posting all this stuff and trying to be goofy and everything like that, and it would just like, comedy to me was witchcraft. Like I would see somebody just talk for an hour and be silly, and it'd be like, how is he going to do that? But for some reason, watching Lindsey Buckingham play Big Love, I was like, yeah, easy. Like, of course. Like that's, watching Slash rip, I'm just like, yeah, of course, that's the easiest thing in the world. So I figured out the connect between like practicing and working on an instrument and getting better at that, and yada, yada, yada. Fast forward to like getting to play my first show and then being a professional musician and everything. And it's a ton of fun. It's a lot of fun, but there was just something missing from like being myself authentically. So when COVID happened, I had the time to do the Great Reset. I got a nice government job, nice cushy government job, you know. And then when that ordeal was finished, I just started doing stand-up at, I didn't even know how to do it properly. Like not stand-up as a craft. I knew how to bomb. Like I knew how to not be funny. That's the easy part. And that's like 50% of the job. But I didn't know where to go to get shows. I didn't know how anybody gets booked on clubs. And I figured it's like anything. Like you don't get a KPP show by just standing out on Princess Street and being like, I really love playing music, and just hoping Mark hears you. You know what I mean? Like, so I knew that I couldn't just go to the clubs and be like, can I play? I think I'm funny. So I started doing all these music open mics in Smiths Falls, where I was living at the time, and just sitting at the back of the bar drinking Pepsi after Pepsi, just getting wired up, dude. Like Alex Jones, who's just saw a nude of Hillary Clinton or something. And then I got up on stage, delivered just a dog shit 6-minute set that people kind of pity laughed at. And I was like, I'm the smartest man and funniest man of all time. So clearly I must do this for the rest of my life. And there's been some mental health battles in there, as there is with anyone. I don't even like talking about it anymore. Let's re-stigmatize mental health problems. You know what I mean? Let's bring that. Let's put those back in the, you know, like put the flannel on and just get to work, boys. But yeah. I've done music as well. It's like kind of encircling comedy, but comedy's the passion. Music is like a really fun side hustle that pays me well. And I don't like saying that. I like saying that because it's honest, but I don't like saying that because I don't like people thinking that I'm like a poser. I love music. I like listening to music. I have favorite bands. Like I'll do long road trips. Savannah, my partner, and I, also Kingston musician, wonderful Kingston musician, singer-songwriter. We'll share songs back and forth, and I still even write sensitive, bearded singer-songwriter type music, but I just don't release it. It's just like for myself and just being like, okay, I needed to get that off my chest. Now back to the songs about my wang. And it's just not where my passion's at. I feel like I'm pretending to be somebody when I'm playing music, where with comedy, it's like I can just go up on stage. It doesn't matter if I'm doing 5 minutes or 40. Like I just feel the most myself, or the turned on, like dimed version of myself that I am just feels more true to who I am on the inside than like sitting in the corner of a bar. Or I mean, I've done some pretty decent listening rooms since starting to do comedy and doing them as a musician. Like, and even when people are paying attention to me and they're watching me do my own original stuff, it just doesn't feel. It just feels weird. Feels like I'm wearing feels like my skin is on and it's too tight. You know, like forget wearing like a Speedo. It just feels like my skin itself is like, God, like, did I put this in the dryer? You know, like it's brutal.
Well, I'm glad to hear all that, especially that part about being true to yourself. And this isn't coming from a doctor, but I feel like a lot of depression comes from doing things that you're not supposed to be doing, like appeasing other people's expectations rather than what is right for you.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're in that space, or at least closer to it.
Yeah, I mean, truly. I mean, like, I've worked hard enough as a musician to have, like, a rate, which is nice. I've also worked hard enough as a musician to be irate most of the time. But that's one for the kids, you know? If there's any nanas listening to this podcast, there you go, you know?
I feel like I should have brought the drum kit in here.
Yeah, seriously.
Run out there, hit a drum roll, and come back in.
Yeah,
I can get it.
Yeah, that's so funny. And we're keeping all of this in. Yeah, we're not editing a damn thing. This is so funny.
I really hope the mic's picked up just the distant sound of drumsticks rolling and a snare slowly coming in. There we go. The second trip to get the cymbal. I love it.
So good. This is already the best podcast I've ever been on.
Not since we had the Mills theremin.
Nice.
See, this is why I should have set up another camera facing you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? That's my fault. I told Riley Jabor, no, we just need the camera on Logan.
Yeah, you didn't know that you didn't know I was a prop comic, did you? Yeah.
First time we've ever done a visual gag on this podcast.
Yeah, this is great. Oh, that's beautiful. There we go. Brother, I lost my train of thought, and I'm so it's in a plane somewhere now. Like
I think we were talking about depression.
Yeah, we were talking. Yeah. So, anyways, I've never been sadder. That's so funny. Yeah, man. Like. Music rips. I'm very grateful for like where I'm at as a musician. Oh, yeah, depression. So yeah, like right, being the saddest I've ever been. I've been doing music long enough to like have a set rate, and it's made me more money than it ever has. I actually got audited by the CRA last year. Woo, let's go.
That's how you know you've made it.
Big Dad, yeah, and they're kicking him out now. Like I'm like, guys, come on, it's a year too late. You know, Papa was hungry. Whoever gets in power is also going to suck. But anyways. I've made more money as a musician. I've also never been sadder. It just feels like I'm doing every little bit of my energy is for other people, which is not a bad thing. I think we should volunteer. I think we should be selfless. Selflessness, I think, is a huge factor in happiness. But a little bit of what I do creatively and as an artistic person needs to be for myself, you know? Like, yes. I have to also enjoy getting up on stage and being silly. Because I've met comedians, some of them are my best friends in the world, that view comedy the way that I view music. And every time they have to go do a show, they go, oh, this fucking shit again. Comedy, you know? And I'm like, oh, God, okay, I hope that doesn't happen to me. But it already did, you know? I just am going to play a Shoeless Joe's in Petawawa when it happens, you know? Like, that's just, they just want to hear Wagon Wheel in Petawawa. That's when that happens, so.
I'm curious where comedy comes from for you. There was a great quote by Don Rickles. He said, some people say funny things, I say things funny.
Ooh.
Which I really like. And I'm curious for you, because I find comedians, either they just see the world in a comedic way and they present that to their audience, right, or people just respond to them because they have a naturally funny sort of vibe and they just lean into it.
Yeah, man. I think it's a little bit of both for me. Like, I do find as a comedy enjoyer, if it's a really well thought out punchline, I'm more to give like a nice, you know, like that was a great take on that. But if it's like I love Tim and Eric, and I love like Tim Robinson even, and it's like it's smart in the sense of how something like that is so funny, but that gets me belly laughing, like rolling on the floor, tears in my eyes type of like laughing like a kid, dude. And so it's more, I guess if we were to boil it down into one or two things, I think that saying and doing things funny is more true to what I think is hilarious. I mean, if you listen to my record, Black Man, White Privilege, available on all streaming services. If you listen to my record...
You should listen to it. It's fun.
Thanks, man. Thanks. There's songs that are saying things funny, like the Pegging song or Middle-Aged Love. And then there's songs where funny things are being said, and then songs where I'm just saying regular things that are funny, like Just Kidding. Is like, there's a couple of jokes in there, like speaking of pound, that's what I'd like to do. But for the most part, it's like this ridiculous deconstruction of a pet owner that wants to have sexual relations with their animal. And that, to me, is like the funniest song I had written up until that point. And it's, I'm very happy. I'm grateful that I put the record out, but it got me, having that song be the last song on the record made me so excited for the next batch of songs that I was going to put out, which I'm sure every artist is like. You know, the last album you put out and you're like, yeah, I got to do the press tour, but we're like 6 songs into the next record and I'm already stoked about it. But, you know, that's just the way that it is. So, yeah.
I'm so curious about the intersection of like music and comedy, because
Right.
every time I like get super into a comedian that like I find I super vibe with or whatever, I always find out like secondhand that it's like, oh, they're also into the same music I am, and it's like they're not talking about the same thing the songs are about, sort of thing, but
Yeah.
like the vibe is still there. Or like artists that are signed to like big music labels, like Sub Pop has this whole other like kind of comedian subculture to it and stuff like that. And as somebody who does both, do you find there's kind of like a common ground, even like mentally, of like where you're coming from as a music guy and a comedy guy?
Yeah, I mean, I think specifically in especially the rock star mentality, or even just like I think hip hop and comedy, especially recently, have become this sort of like, they've been in this intersectional space. Maybe it's just because like flow, timing, and everything are so essential to both like artistic mediums. I'd make poop jokes. I said artistic medium. Anyways, no,
art.
it is. It is. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. But I pay my cask fee, you know. But anyways, it's Canadian Association of Stand-Up Comedy. You got to pay money. But
I was lost for a second there. I was like, fuck, I need to Google that.
It's like SoCan or you know all the other ones. But I think there's like an intersectionality between like hip hop and comedy a lot of the time. I mean, even some of the ways people dress. Like I've seen, I mean, you go back in the 90s and you'd be hard pressed to find somebody that wasn't either like doing the grunge thing and ripped jeans, or was like David Letterman in it on that's not a verb. David Letterman in it. Okay, guys.
It's a verb now.
Yeah, it's a verb now.
Yeah.
Put it down. And like wearing like a suit and tie on stage doing the Norm Macdonald thing. But now I find a lot of people are like wearing OVO, like repping OVO shit, or like dressing like Drake on stage and then delivering these wacky characters. And I'm like, this is great. Yeah, this is like, it says, I mean, even some of the bigger comedians like Tom Segura's taken private jets to like Ottawa to go and play the TD Center, and it's like, that's ridiculous. Like, you know, like you write dark humor, like, you know, you have so many jokes about seeing your son naked. What are we doing? Like, and you're taking, and he's got like reels with like dun, dun, yo as he's like flying into Ottawa, and I'm like, he's about to talk about his son's penis. Like, what like this is crazy. But I like it, man. And like specifically like music and comedy, I think go so hand in hand. I just find like the more stuff that you have to latch onto that makes like a joke memorable. Like it's people think it's cheating, and maybe it is a little bit, that it's like I write songs and I try to, like, my method is always a song has to be good first, because the jokes I can replace. You know, there's especially writing a song called the Hand Job Song. There's about 40 jokes that are probably funnier than some of the ones on there that I left on the cutting room floor because I'm like, yeah, whatever, you know. But having that thing that you can just kind of grab onto that makes a joke memorable, like I love that sort of thing, and I think melody really helps with that. And it's like, people have issues with guitar comedy or musical comedy because it's hacky, and the bad stuff is, you know, like the shit rises to the top as well as the cream sometimes, unfortunately. But like my biggest influences with that are like Adam Sandler, because I'm a silly boy. It's like I like Adam Sandler, I like Weird Al Yankovic, you know, like I like Flight of the Conchords, Tenacious D. It's like people that write songs and not just like punchlines to the key of G. You know, like that's kind of what, you know, Lunch Lady Land's hilarious. It's also a bop. Like, sloppy Joe, sloppy Joe. Like, that's so good. Even after it's funny, it's stuck in your head. It's great.
Yeah, there's so many comedians that people think of like musical comedians where they kind of get that bad rap. And then they like, you hear them on the odd serious song and they're like, oh shit, like I forgot they're also a musician. Like Jean Lajoie put out like a whole like folk record. And people are like, this fucking bangs.
Yeah.
Or Jack Black guesting on that Dave Grohl Probot project forever ago. And I Am the Warlock, killer song.
So good. Yeah, so good.
It's easy to forget how good of a singer Jack Black is, too.
Dude's range is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And also so funny. Like, such a great comedy writer. And so, like, my big thing is, like, the performance art aspect of it. Like, I am not after, and I've been pretty universal with this, like, in the last, like, 3 years of doing stand-up. I'm not after the perfect joke. I'm not after the joke that's going to be like, and when I'm 75, it's like, you know, that Logan Brown was the last Carlin that we had. Like, I don't care about any of that. I think George Carlin's great. I think he changed the face of stand-up comedy, much like Lenny Bruce did, and yada, yada, yada. But I just like a silly-ass time. I like people to forget about their problems. Even when I do crowd work, I'm not calling anybody gay in the front row. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not, like, looking at people being like, I can't wait to own these hecklers. Like, if you're being an asshole, I know how to, like, handle it. But for the most part, it's like, I call people handsome in the front row more than anything. So it's like, it's just what I do, man. I'm just here to have a good time and just be silly. And, yeah.
I was going to ask about that, too. Do you ever get hecklers?
Yeah. It's harder to combat with the guitar. I've learned, like, mid-song to deal with people, like, and not lose my flow a little bit. But it's even then, it's like, it's a quick, like, in between lyrics being like, shut the fuck up, and then go back to, like, you know, like, in key. But yeah, man, like, dealing with hecklers is, like, it's pretty easy, because when someone disrupts a show that other people have paid like $15 and $20 for, unless they're heckling you because you said something truly fucked up and abhorrent, which again, I have no issue, like, that's not going to happen to me. People are on your side. So you can say, like, the dumbest, you can be like, yeah, so's your face, you know, and people are already like, wow, this guy's so funny, he handled that heckler, you know. So it's like, from there, when you're already starting at a 6, it's very easy to get to like an 8, a 9, or a 10. So yeah.
I was going to ask about the comedy scene in Kingston. I mean, obviously we talk a lot about the music scene in Kingston, but I think Kingston's comedy scene is kind of like underrated. I feel like for a city of our size, it's a pretty healthy scene. Yeah,
we've got like, we need more comics. Like, that's the thing. It's like, we've got like 15 to 20 people and then maybe like 10 more that have like tried stand-up but don't really want to do it anymore. I think we just need more comedians, because I would love to, there's so many venues, so many places with great sound quality and like rooms that are just as well set up for comedy as they are for music, that I would love to get in and do like a weekly open mic where we just have different comedians coming through each time. Right now it's just like pro shows and you know, we can bring somebody down from Ottawa and then I can put like 3 buddies on, but even then I have to be like choosy with like, okay, this is somebody that's been doing the same 10 minutes for the last like 2 years, so I don't really want to put them on because they're going to invite their friends out who've already seen all their stuff. Like I want it to be banger after banger. So it's like we could use more, but yeah, in terms of like joke writing and stuff, I mean, headliners, like we've got like Denis, like Ryan Denis is like a great Yucks. Like I'm not sure if he's still signed to Yucks, but man, like that guy is a wicked comedian. Dave Hudson is hilarious. We've got like so many people that like pop in all the time. Like now that Kingston is getting recognized as, especially since Denis kind of like stepped back into like producing shows, and now that he's got the club Nawabs, that he's rebirthed Time to Laugh and isn't having death metal bands play there. Who would have thought it would be a great comedy venue if you stopped having death metal bands show up and you know, like. Hey, who's headlining this weekend at Time to Laugh? Oh, Tesseract and Meshuggah. Oh, sick, dude. Sounds like a funny time. Like,
and you can get butter chicken poutine.
Yeah, and you get a wicked butter chicken poutine. No, but since Denis like come back into like producing shows in Kingston, it's become a really like palatable stop for headliners going from Toronto to Ottawa, you know, because there's 3 clubs in Ottawa. If you haven't gotten on Jay's radar to play Absolute, and you don't want to go to the West End to play Yucks, you've got the Laugh Lounge, and they're also incredible writers in Ottawa. So having some place in between to come in on a Thursday or on a Wednesday and just crush for like 75 people, get the bag, make some new fans that are in between those 2 stops, like I think is like crucial, and it's really nice to see that growing here. You know, it'd be nice for like just the headliners of Ontario to have 1 extra paid weekend a year, not only to support their families and like support themselves, but to just have like 1 more city where like a scene is growing. I think what Kingston needs is the same issue that Ottawa has, is unity among those things. And Kingston's way better at it than Ottawa is. Like the musicians don't fuck with the comedians and don't fuck with the fashion industry and don't fuck with the visual artists in Ottawa, which is very strange. And my buddy,
why would they?
Yeah, it's a weird thing, man, where it's just like everybody wants support, but nobody wants interdisciplinary support. It's like we all like music, we all like to laugh. I'm not even an art guy, and I can enjoy a beautiful visual arts painting, and I like fashion. It doesn't look like it, but you know, I can appreciate fashion. I would love to go and see all of these things and support all of these things, but it just starts with like this one entity not fucking with the other one, and so there's no cross like pollination, I guess. Mm-hmm. And it's getting better. My old roommate, shout out to Jacob Rocco, who has Down to the Wire podcast. His whole mission statement with Down to the Wire is like uniting these arts in Ottawa, because he loves the city so much. Uniting these arts in Ottawa and getting them all to like, yeah, like he wants to do a fashion show where comedians get fashion designers to give them wacky outfits, and then they go out and they do 10, 15 minutes of stand-up. And it's like, yeah, it's a great idea of like bringing these people together. We could use a little bit of that in Kingston, just so that it's like you can go and see like Brett from the Glorious Sons at a Time to Laugh show, because it's just like a bad example because they're huge and he's very busy. But like, you know, you can go and see like, I don't know, any local musician also at like a comedy show who's also like going to see like wicked art, like this wicked art showcase is happening at the TED or something like that. Like that's what I would love. But yeah, we just fucking, you know, just get out there and support your small businesses, dude. Yeah.
Well, for the cross-pollination that you're talking about, is there an ideal scenario for a comedian? Because I imagine for comedy, the conditions have to be a certain way to get to maximize the laughs, right? Like,
right.
Is there an ideal situation, like playing before a musician, after a musician? You mentioned fashion shows.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think these, in a perfect world, it wouldn't be this like variety hour thing where you've got like a 4-hour block or a 3-hour block or anything like that where music is happening and then comedy is happening. I would like to see a couple variety shows that kind of introduce all these elements together. I think that would be really cool. Like, I mean, if we had somebody do like a talk show of some kind, like it's like, like it's David Letterman, where we have somebody funny do a monologue, have a comedian on, have a musical guest, have a cool interview with like a mover and shaker in the city. I don't know what Dan Aykroyd's doing. He seems like a busy guy. You know, he's drinking out of a crystal skull now, so that's you know, like
He's conquered his enemies like that.
Yeah, he's getting medieval and shit recently, but yeah, it would be cool to have like a couple of those every now and again. But what I mean is just more of like the support across the board of like, I would like to see comics going to the Merchant on a Friday night with the purpose of like checking out a band. I mean, get drunk too if you want, but like go out and for the purpose of like, yeah, it's the thing we do is we go out and support. And then on Saturday night, people go and see that comedian headline at Nawab's. And then Thursday night before, everybody was at like a farmer's market, and they're, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, I want that unity just because that's the thing to do. And I think that's the only way to, not that we want to combat Spotify, because that's a David versus Goliath type of thing happening there. But at the very least, I think that's the best way that we can live with a Spotify, is if we go, okay, we get our music for 12, we get all of the music that's ever been recorded ever for $12, and every podcast that's ever been recorded. How do we still support these people? Oh, it's by not only fucking with our crew and going out and fucking with everybody's crew, as long as they're decent people.
We could try a Luigi versus Goliath situation.
Yeah, we can try Luigi versus Goliath. My brother would never kill. Let's go. I mean, like, we never. He doesn't like a turtle, but he never had any problem with a universal health care. There it is. Dude, you brought it out and we hadn't used it. And I'm like, fuck, I'm being kind of serious on the spot. Like, we gotta get in.
The right moment was going to happen, yeah. Should we get to a track? Before I forget.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to hear Secret
Slipknot,
Burger.
great song. Oh, sorry. I thought you meant we were going to listen to it before I forget.
Play duality on a snare and a cymbal.
Yeah. Secret Burger, man. That's I love that song, dude. That's
so do I.
I wrote that song because so when you get a contract from Yucks, what'll happen is you just get this random email and it just goes, "You're booked here. Like, show up at this time. This is what you're making. Here are the comics that you're working with." And it was Valentine's Day. And I was like, oh, sick. Like, I'm single. Like, let's go do Valentine's Day with the boys. You know, we're just hanging out. It was me, my buddy Clint Gibbons, my buddy Bobby Knuff, who used to be the voice of Taco Bell Canada. I also do a puppet show with him called Andre the Alien, That's Comedy. And my buddy Rob Pugh, who's like one of the greatest headliners in North America. He's like a comics comic. Like, you go down to LA and people are like, oh yeah, we know Pugh. You know, everybody knows Pugh, but like here he's just like, yeah, man, I just fucking do it. I do the grind. I pay for my house. You know, that's what it is, you know? And we went down and we didn't know, because it said sold out gymnasium or some shit. So we're like, fuck yeah. Like, we were all getting paid fat stacks. Like, we're going to have a good time. I was hosting. We show up and it's in some beautiful place in Quebec. But the gym, it was like a Lions Hall. Sold out meant that they only put out 50 chairs. And that's how many tickets they sold. And it was a dry bar. So you had a bunch of like 80-year-olds drinking like Diet Dr. Pepper, watching me sing about my penis. And by the time, like, dude, I bombed so hard. When I brought Rob up to headline, I shook his hand and I just went, "I'm so fucking sorry." Like, in his ear, and then walked off and just like couldn't even drown my sorrows, dude. I just stared at my feet and watched him like keep the balloon in the air to keep this audience happy. We finish up and I'm saying goodbyes and he's like, "Maybe write one song. It's not about cum, son." You know? And so that's where Secret Burger came from, you know?
Punch the clock at my 9 to 5. Warm my car, time to start my drive. My lady asks me to pick up fast food. I'm happy to oblige, but there's something I must do. What my wife don't know could never hurt her. So I'll get myself a secret burger. A secret burger, the only thing to make me feel. Secret burger, inhaled over my steering wheel. Always on impulse, never planned. Last minute purchase at the drive-thru stand. Don't need a wrapper, just throw it in my face. And forget you ever saw me set foot in this place. A crime so perfect it could be murder. Get separate bags to tidy up my secret burger. Secret burger, the cashier knows I lied to my wife. Secret burger. So I ball my fists and threaten his life. But I've been had. Who let it slip? Was it bacon on my breath or ketchup stains on my lips? She wants a divorce. It escalates so quickly, I'm sorry. She wants a divorce. She's sick of my tricks, but she's leaving me the car and enough cash for McDicks. Ba-da. Thank you. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. She's leaving me. She's leaving me. In the cold, on the street, sold my car to make ends meet. People pass while I shake my jar. I think I took this burger thing a little too far. I ask him if he can spare some change, sir. He says that I'll just use it for a secret burger. Secret burger, if I could travel back to before. Secret burger, if I'm honest, I'd just order some more. All right, I want ketchup and pickles, processed cheese, a frozen patty fried in bacon grease. I would kill a man, his wife and his son, if he ever came between me and a sesame bun. I once went to Arby's for that taste I admire. I saw roast beef on the menu, lit the building on fire. Don't you offer me a salad, I ain't playing no games. There'll be a Netflix miniseries and the title's my name. Secret burger.
This episode of Kingston Live is brought to you by Grand Onstage. Grand Onstage takes you beyond the regular Kingston Grand Theater experience. It's a subscription option that gives you access to pre-sale tickets, the best prices, and the best seats. That means you can customize your own individual package starting at just 4 performances. Want to bring friends? Subscriber pricing applies to their tickets too. And if your plans change, just exchange your tickets for another performance. Tickets for individual performances and subscriptions for the Grand Onstage season are on sale now at kingstongran.ca.
I remember when I first heard Secret Burger, there was a friend of mine who years ago, he and his wife were dieting together.
Oh.
Except he wasn't losing any weight.
Yeah.
And she couldn't figure out why until she found the A&W bags in the back of his car.
Oh, God, dude.
So when I heard your song, I was like, yes, it's a real thing. Yeah.
It's a real thing. Yeah.
The Secret Burger. Yeah.
It's absolutely a real thing. Also something I've done many times. Dude, I've been on my way to Thanksgiving dinner and seen that like Wendy's is open, and I'm like, well, they're not gonna have Thanksgiving Baconators. Like, Daddy deserves to. I'm like, I don't like yams, so maybe this is just my yams, you know? Like, yeah, it's brutal, dude.
Did you bring them to the dinner, or did you just eat it in the car?
Oh, I ate it in the car.
Yeah,
100%.
It was a legit secret burger.
Oh, it was a legit secret burger. Dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always got the like, and I know how to like cram. I know how to, from the driver's seat, cram a takeout box or like a takeout bag under the driver's seat. Like I'm Mr. Fantastic when it comes to that. And right now I'm driving Savannah's car because I have a real problem with the wildlife in Kempville. You know, I just keep hitting them with my Nissan, dude.
I feel like the wildlife has a problem with you.
Yeah. It's some small town racism happening in Kempville. Only in the wildlife though. They don't like brothers in Kempville, dude. Yeah. They call them the Proud Bambies out there. So I can't leave shit in Savannah's car. I'm too good of a human being, man. I'm a good guy, you know? But when I come in after doing a gig and there's like a McDonald's bag in there, I've never done the walk of shame before, but this is probably the closest thing of just like walking that into the garbage. Because like I usually get home at like 12 and I'm like, she's going to be asleep. There's no way. And it's like, I don't want to sneak anything on her, but I also like don't want to be like, yeah, I ate 17 burgers in the 30 minutes it took me to get from Gann back to Kingston. But then it'll always be like, oh, you're home. And I'm like, yep, as I'm shoving this fucking greasy bag of Mickey D's, dude. Just like this absolute like container of gut rot into a garbage can. Just be like, fuck, what's wrong? Like, why does it, I'm a very straight and narrow, like, I eat pretty clean. Like, I'm a salad every meal type of guy. I don't exercise as much as I could, but like, there's nothing funny about being ripped, you know? And I gotta keep, you gotta stay funny, man. That's why I grew the mustache. Beards are definitely sexier, but the mustache, there's something hilarious about it, you know? It's just, the second I get, it's the ride home. The ride home from a gig. The ride there, I'm like pre-gig nerves, you know, like, oh, okay, like we're gonna do this. You know, maybe I hit the vape once more than I normally would, but it's the ride back where I'm like, you did a good job, buddy. You know, you know what? They wanted Old Town Road, and you played Old Town Road for them. So you should get 14 McDoubles. You should just have 14 McDoubles, dude. Why not? Yeah. And then I don't eat for a week, man. Yeah. We were talking about mental health earlier.
We've talked about Nawabs a couple of times.
Yeah.
Where else do you see live comedy in Kingston?
It happens at Daft.
Yeah?
Yeah, Denis runs that. I think it's usually once a month, usually the first Thursday or second Thursday of every month, I think. Yeah, there's not a ton of places, man. And that's what I mean. There's so many places that could have comedy. I think they would need to be once a month things. Like, I have the open mic at the Nog, which is like open to everybody, but only musicians come down, which is chill. Like, because I'm seeing people that I haven't seen in like years. It's been 8 years since I moved back to Kingston, so it's really nice. But I would love, again, if we can just get more comedians in Kingston that would necessitate having a weekly open mic or bi-weekly open mic, I would just love that, you know?
Well, is it that we need more comedians or we need more places for them to perform?
I think we need more comedians.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because there's like, I was literally texting Smitty about doing something at the Buckle before I came here. Because he's got that basement room that like Tom Green has talked about how it's like perfect for comedy. Like this would be like the room in comedy. There's been comedy at the Broom Factory, comedy at the Mansion, comedy at every Legion from here to Sealy's Bay. No shortage of rooms for comedy. No shortage of rooms where we can flash mob people with a speaker and a microphone.
And what is it? Sorry, I'm cutting you off.
Well, I was going to ask, what makes for a good room?
That was also going to be my question.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice.
Same wavelength.
We're
perfect.
Good.
And I think I've got the same answer for both of you.
Excellent.
I don't know. No. Low ceilings are really nice. Low ceilings and like pack people together. Like that's the biggest thing.
Okay.
A stage is like ideal, of course, but I mean that's the same with anything. You know, if you're going to be performing, I don't want to be level with anybody's nutsack. You know what I mean? Like and I'm a short guy, so like give me a big stage. But yeah, pack people together, low ceilings. Like you want laughter to be rolling. I don't know if you guys been to a comedy show like recently, but when you watch a comedy show on Netflix, whether it's a special or it's like or anything, it's like SNL or some shit, it's never as funny. Like the jokes got to be so fun. Like you are the hardest audience. You're the worst audience when you're at home. You can pause it because you got to take a pee and you don't feel like you're missing out on anything. Like when you're holding your bladder in because you're like scared to stand up because that guy's gonna be like, "Where's that peckerhead going?" You know, and the people are like demonically laughing at you like it's some sort of like revival church in Atlanta, you know, in the mid 40s. Like that's when comedy is at its best. And I think like the basement vibe is top tier for that, you know. Like Jay for the guy who owns Abs has everything down to the color scheme meticulously set up to be like he's like purple's a funny color. That's why I paint things like yellow and purple in here. Huh. And I'm like, you're so smart. Like you're a fucking genius, man. Like yeah, it's wild.
That's the comedy equivalent of like no clocks in a casino type shit.
Exactly.
Like that's so cerebral.
No, when you're like club owners, for good reason, sometimes can get a really bad rap, but they really care about the craft of it and people having a good time. And, you know, it's like there's shady people of all walks of life. Listen, I've been paid. I've done like a Supernova show where I've been paid in drink tickets, you know, to open up for somebody that just made the guy like 40 grand in 15 minutes, you know, like, but it is what it is. It's so fun and it works best when everybody cares about the final product as much, you know. When money gets involved is when it gets sketchy because I've seen some shows, I've been on some shows where it's like, I know this show's padded with a bunch of people that can sell tickets but are dog shit comedians. Then it's on like the 2 to 3 pros that have been booked on the show to make sure for a 90-minute show that their 10 minutes is when everybody gets their $20 worth. Otherwise they just supported their friend and ruined their night out and got a babysitter for nothing. And I'm like, guys, like no one, you want everybody to come back. Comedy is an art form people are trepidatious about. Art fans love art, so they go out. But comedy fans like aren't always going to go back and see comedy live unless somebody huge rolls through. If they're watching Tom Segura Netflix specials, they're not going to go out and catch me on stage. They've never heard of me. You know what I mean? Maybe they've heard a couple of my tunes on Sirius XM, but that doesn't necessitate a ticket sale. So we want people to like make sure that the whole show is great, banger to banger to banger, better time than you just sitting at home watching the latest Segura Netflix special, because we want people to keep coming back for more.
Well, and I was just saying to Riley Jabor before you came in, I feel like stand-up comedy is such an underrated form of entertainment. Like I don't go to comedy shows regularly, but every time I do, it's just such a good time.
It's great. It's great. And it's like, I think it's funny. Maybe it's just because I'm like a masochist. But I think it's funny no matter what happens. Like you have a story to tell. If you go to a restaurant and somebody's playing guitar in the background and they're just like, okay, you're not going to talk about how okay. Like maybe like you and your date or like you and your buddies are going to be like, yeah, did you hear how he fucking played the wrong chord in Freebird? Like, yeah, it kind of sucked, But if somebody eats it, if you watch somebody's dreams shatter before your eyes on stage, that's a conversation that you're going to have for like years. Like that's the funniest shit to me. As much as someone like when you have worked so hard on something that you think is funny and you take it on stage and you go, this is funny. And then you have 200 people go, no, it's not. That's really funny, dude. So it's happened to me, man. Like it hits you in your soul and you're just like, not a one, eh? Like this is truly a unique perspective that you've never heard and cannot relate to on any front. I have a line in a new song where I talk about how my penis bends, and it's never gotten a laugh. And I literally, like, in order to save that line, because I love it so much, I started stopping the song and being like, nobody else has a bendy dick, eh? You guys are just looking like right angles out there. Like, yeah.
Well, I imagine and you being on both sides, having been both a musician and a comedian, when you perform, you're kind of exposing yourself in a way, but in very different ways, it sounds like. When you're a musician, you're exposing yourself artistically. And you're like, this is me, this is how I see the world. Whereas with comedy, I remember John Cleese saying that comedy is always at someone's expense.
Right.
Like comedy is usually critical.
Yes.
And sometimes you were the one making the joke. Maybe sometimes you are the joke.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I mean, the only thing I would argue is that I believe comedy is like expressing your perspective as well. And I think when it's done right, I don't like preachy comedy too much, but like when it's done right, you can kind of like articulate a point and also be funny at the same time. But yeah, I think it is always at the expense of something. Because, I mean, even in just being silly, the joke is always on me, whether it's like I'm flubbing a word. I mean, I sent you, speaking of exposing myself, one of the pictures I sent you for promo was one with, I ripped my shirt off at the most recent Yucks gig that I did. It's like talk about exposing yourself,
Those are great pictures, by the way.
Thanks, man. Yeah. Thanks, yeah. I'm shredded in them, dude. I can't wait for you guys to see these photos, man. They're crazy. Men will weep. Like, dogs will be pregnant. But cats will die. I don't know. But my favorite thing is like turning it inwards a little bit. And I poke fun at some things that I think are like criminally stupid. Like when I first started, of course, like I started mid-COVID, so I had a ton of like anti-vax material. But it's at best when it's not alienating anybody, because I don't want to know. I have my own opinion. I mean, like I'm a non-straight, non-white millennial, like living in Kingston. You know how I'm voting. Like I don't need to tell you how. Like you don't need to see the bumper sticker on the back of my car that just says "No hate here" to know like how I vote every fucking 4 years, dude. But I just don't want to know, because like I grew up in Odessa. I know a lot of people that vote in the opposite direction, and I love them the same way. And that's a very privileged perspective that I have, because like there's a lot of people that live in fear every day for several reasons of like the people that I grew up around, without even knowing them. And it's like, for good reason, man. Like that shit's like, you don't want to turn down an alley into somebody's cornfield and be like, oh, right, this guy hates gay dudes. Like, like it's completely understandable. But again, like I grew up in a small town where it's like my high school had like 500 people and 2 dogs. Like it was me and like a tan kid were the only black kids, like a white kid with a tan and me, and he was darker than I was, so like it was tough, man. It was a hard time, dude. So it's like I have this like perspective where at the end of the day, I try to give everybody the Benny the D, and just like if my humor is going to be broad but not pandering as possible. And the best way to do that is to turn the joke inwards and poke it at myself, which is why I write songs about my ex-girlfriend trying to peg me, or like, or I play like a caricature of like some burly, like nobody wants a hand job fucking, yeah, you know what I mean? Like that to me is like the most fun, or stuff that we can laugh at together.
Well, I like that because comedy is such a great way to bring people together. And there's so much comedy these days that gets political, and I'm not against that, but it is nice when everyone can kind of just put their differences aside and just have a laugh.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just decompress the group.
Yeah. Well, because like, I mean, when you think about it from an individual, like, yeah, groups in and of themselves, like, it's nice to fit into something sometimes, but like, they can just be like kind of shitty and dangerous, and like painting anything with a broad stroke sucks. But when you look at the individual, it's like, I would hate for somebody to pay $25 to come to a comedy show, $50 for a babysitter, another $20 to get in the Uber and get down there, $50 on the drinks and the foods, and this is at like a Chuck's Roadhouse, dude, so it could be way more, and then have the first comic get up there and be like, you know what I hate about redneck pieces of shit, and it's like, well, goddamn, like, I get in my truck from Amersfoort and I fucking drive down here and I'm just trying to have a good ass time, and then this guy's making fun of GMC and I just don't take too kindly to that, Like,
I like the implication of the Amherst View accent different than the rest of Kingston.
Yeah. Amherst View, Texas is where I was. Yeah.
And you have a special coming out soon.
I do, yeah. So it's we filmed and recorded Black Man, White Privilege, and I've been sitting on the video footage because I just wanted to get the Sirius XM and everything like that for the CD. And then now that that's all up and running, it's just kind of staggering as I write the next album and try to put out the next special. I sat on the footage of this one, so I'm going to be putting this up on YouTube probably like mid-February at the absolute latest, like maybe like a pre-Valentine's Day. There's so much sex material on it. It's a good pre-Valentine's Day, if you
want to get into the mood.
They say laughter's an aphrodisiac.
Yeah. Can you last 30 seconds? Well, here's your 30 minutes after. Logan Brown's brand new special. Black Man, White Privilege, dude. Yeah.
You've mentioned a couple of times how Kingston needs more comedians. For people that are like kind of on that cusp of like, I think I want to try it, but I don't know like how, I don't know where. What's the easiest way to break that ice, to figure it out, to try it out?
I would be like reaching out to the clubs. And honestly, man, like Kingston's so supportive. If you're listening to this right now and you've got like a fucked up dark sense of humor, it is going to be tougher for you because you're going to be like, let me just try 5 minutes at Musiki, and then you're going to say something and people are going to stab you in the neck, Not that Musiki's not but Musiki is a safe space, and that's why probably it's like, don't go saying some shit at Musiki. But like, I didn't know how to do it. I started in Smiths Falls. There's no comedy scene in Smiths Falls. So I just started going to music open mics, and like, you got 2 songs, so that's 8 minutes. Let me just do 8 minutes of new material and see if I can hold people's attention. And it's going to suck, and you're going to bomb, but one person's going to laugh, and that's going to be enough to get you to the next thing, And also, like, don't be afraid of bombing. The first time it sucks is the worst time, and then after that, it's like falling off of your bike. Like, the first time you skid your knee, you're like, they'll never get back on the bike again. And then every time after that, until you like hit like 50, you're like, I'm fine. It's fine. I gotta go to the hospital, but it's good. It's not a big deal. Yeah.
Kingston, I feel like the music scene and the comedy scene sometimes are kind of opposite, and where like Kingston seems to have a really great like middle comedy scene where there's a lot of like local bands playing small venues and stuff, but the big bands that come through, there's not like a ton of them at the Slush Puppy place unless it's like Doobie Brothers or fucking super old type shit.
Yeah.
And it's almost like the opposite, I find. We get the Jim Jeffries, the Jimmy Carrs coming through for the Leon Center, but the mid-size comedy spot isn't really there for whatever reason. Do you have like a perspective on that from the industry side of things?
I'm hoping, honestly, that's what Time to Laugh is going to change. Because it's like there's no club. If you're big enough to do a soft theater, that's great, but they're not somebody that's going to try and headline a club. And it's exhausting to sell your own tickets and try to find especially like if you Google Kingston Comedy right now, you'll find Al Babcock's name, you're going to find Ryan Denny's name, and then you're going to have to do some digging before you find anybody else because, like, marketing-wise, it's just not there right now. So I'm hoping that's kind of what Nawab's does. It puts this as, like, a viable, like we were talking about earlier, like a stop for, somebody like Alex Wood, who's, like, fucking crusher. He's got his own book out. He's a headliner. He's been headlining for, like, over a decade. Like, on Kevin Hart's, like, comedy network all the time. Like, place for him to stop in between Toronto and get into Ottawa. That's what I want. You get out, and if you're listening to this and you're like nervous about doing comedy, or you're nervous about even going to see comedy, just go do it. Because like the quicker we get everybody that we can behind growing this comedy scene, the quicker you're gonna have like really strong. And there's already great shows happening. There's already really strong shows happening with great comedians. That's what I'm hoping like Nawab's helps push, is that like stop in Kingston. There's a space between, you want to get to Montreal, you want to get to Ottawa, there's a space in between in Kingston. Break that up, get the bag, make people laugh, gain some fans, sell some merch, get the fuck on the road. Hey, Kingston, didn't you have a great time? Isn't it sick like to have one other thing that we can do in a town of 133,000 people? Like, isn't it great that we can do this here? We already are so good. We have like 1,700 festivals that happen in the summertime. Just go see your fucking cousin's nephew's neighbor go do stand-up for 15 minutes. For the love of God, please.
What do you think if I asked you to tell us a joke before we wrap it up here?
Yeah, sure, dude. Okay, all right. Here's my dad's favorite joke, all right? These 3 kids get arrested and they're brought before a judge, all right? The judge looks down at the first kid and he goes, "What the hell are you doing here? Like, you're like an 8-year-old kid. Like, what could you possibly have done to be brought before a judge today?" And the kid goes, "I don't know what is going on, Your Honor. I was just at the zoo and I was throwing peanuts at the elephant." Judge goes, "All right, that's fine. Doesn't seem like it's kind of annoying, but whatever." Goes to the second kid. He goes, "You have anything to add to this story? Like, I have no idea why my time is being wasted here and the taxpayers' money." And the kid goes, "I have no idea either, Your Honor. I'm so sorry. We were just at the zoo. We were throwing peanuts at the elephant." He goes, "Okay." He's like, "So far, I'm getting a little annoyed with the arresting officer." Then he goes to the third kid, the smallest kid of the 3, and he goes, "What could you have possibly done to be brought before me right now?" And the kid looks up at the judge and he says, "My name's Peanuts."
Hey.
Right on. You can thank Denny Brown for that joke, dude. Told me that when I was like 9, and it's still in my brain, dude.
This has been Kingston Live. We encourage you to rate us on your listening platform of choice and subscribe where possible. For show listings, artist info, and all things Kingston music, check out kingstonlive.ca. Kingston Live was produced in Kingston by Soundwise. Hosted by Riley Jabor and John Sanfilippo. Writing and research by Peter Sanfilippo. Executive producer, Rob Howard. We'd love to hear from you. Email us at podcast@kingstonlive.ca.
Honestly, dude, like, I'm just a broken shell of a man because literally 2 hours ago, I beat Black Myth Wukong. So if you guys want to talk about Black Myth Wukong at all, by all means, we can throw that in there. But if not, then you were chill, which is the closest.
I don't know what that is.
It's a video.
Do you know what that is?
It's a video game. Don't worry, boys. Like, if you guys aren't ready to sink 48 hours into a video game, then don't worry about it, But if you are, Black Myth Wukong, that's the one to go.
Okay. I sort of like retired from long video games when I bought the house.
Yeah.
I would lose my house if I got into one of them.
And that's why I'm still renting. Maybe that's, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? The right's trying to get us off avocado toast and lattes, but it's video games. Like, that's like the moms in the early 2000s were right. Marilyn Manson took my home from me, dude. Like what are we doing here, dude? Yeah.